guys, welcome to Telling the Told and Untold. My name is Tshego. Before we go straight into today's case, I do have a content warning for you guys. In this video, we do talk about domestic abuse. So if that's not something you think you're interested in watching, then this video probably isn't for you. So maybe you can watch some of my other videos or just wait for my next upload. Leighandre Jegels was born in 1994 at St. Dominic's Hospital in East London, Eastern Cape. She was a preemie baby. Her mother was just 7 months pregnant when LeAndre came into the world, and she weighed just 1 kilogram at birth. She was so weak as a baby that her mother couldn't breastfeed her. Doctors warned her parents, Rita and Ansel, that their daughter's chances of survival was slim. But LeAndre proved to be fierce from her very first day of life, and despite their predictions, she persevered through nearly 2 months in intensive neonatal care, clinging to life against all odds. The doctor who looked after her would later tell her parents that LeAndre was a fighter, and that she was. She grew up in East London, Eastern Cape, with her mom Rita, her dad Ansel, and her 2 siblings, a brother and a sister. In school, she was bullied because she was so small, and she kept telling her mom Rita about this. And one day Rita told her that she had to start fighting back and standing up for herself. And after this, LeAndre just became stronger and stronger. When she was just 9 years old, she started karate, and she did really well. She excelled and won almost every competition that she entered. She even went to Japan about 3 times to compete, and she didn't take no as an answer. Apart from karate, LeAndre also swam and played hockey, and she did exceptionally well in sports. But she was also so academically gifted. She was the top student throughout her primary and secondary school. Her parents recall her always being at the top of her class, despite her spending so much time doing her extramural activities. In secondary school, she focused more on karate, and her dedication and discipline led her to earn a black belt. And she represented South Africa in the sport, starting at just 15 years old. And for 4 consecutive years, from 2009 to 2012, LeAndre was the South African national karate champion in her age group. LeAndre eventually matriculated, and she went on to study teaching at the University of Fort Hare. And once she graduated with 12 distinctions. Apparently they had 13 modules, and she got distinctions in 12 of the 13. There was one day where she was training a karate class, and they happened to be in the same hall as the boxers. So she went to one of those punching bags that boxers use, and she was just hitting this punching bag when one of the promoters saw her, went up to her and just started talking to her, and he asked if she was interested in boxing. And after that, she started boxing. She was extremely competitive, and sometimes she would get so frustrated if she couldn't do what she wanted to do that she would just burst into tears. She just always wanted to be the best that she could possibly be, and always pushed herself to the limit. LeAndre's first professional fight lasted 2 minutes because it was a knockout. Apparently most of her boxing fights she won by knockouts. It said that she was like day and night. She was a completely different person when she entered the boxing ring, and people often underestimated her because of her build, how friendly she was, and also her name. She decided to go with the name Baby Lee, and her mom actually chose this name. Her mom chose Baby Lee because for her, LeAndre was her baby, and her name was Leandre, so she just decided to go with Lee. And apparently LeAndre liked the name, but she told her mom that she wanted a name that would be more intimidating, a name that people would hear and they'd kind of be like scared of her. But her mom said, you don't need like an intimidating name. Baby Lee is just fine. So she just went on with it, and from there on out, she was known as Leighandre Baby Lee Jegels. It was during this time where Leandre would do both her karate and boxing at this one place where she met Bulelani Manyakama, and there's very little information about him. Apparently, it said that after this case happened, when people tried to talk to his parents, friends, his colleagues, everyone was just very tight-lipped, so we don't really know much about him. What we do know about Bulelani is at the time that he met Leandre, he was about 35 or 36 years old. He was 12 years her senior and worked at the SAP's Tactical Response Unit. It said that he was very disciplined, and he also did karate, and this is how the two of them met. Leandre had told her mom that Bulelani had wanted her to train some of the SAP's officers in karate, and her mom thought that it was a really great idea. It said that Bulelani and Leandre's relationship started out as a friendship where Bulelani would help her through her depressive episodes, and soon their friendship turned into a romantic relationship. The first person that Bulelani met from Leandre's family was her sister, and her sister says that the first time that she met him, she didn't have any bad feelings about him, but when he went to her house for the first time and met her husband, he told his wife right away that he did not like Bulelani, and there was just something about him that didn't sit right with him. He told his wife that he could just tell that Bulelani was abusive and that he probably hit Leandre. Leandre's parents, Rita and Ansel, had an even stronger reaction to their meeting with Bulelani. The first thing that stuck out to them was the age gap between Leandre and Bulelani. It was 12 years, and she was still in her early 20s. He was in his mid 30s. There were these power dynamics between the two of them. He had all this life experience that Leandre had yet to experience. It was also one of her first relationships, and they just didn't think that it was a really good fit for her. Ansel would later say that Bulelani was far too much of a smooth talker for his liking, and he also seemed to have an answer for everything. There was one time where they were all sitting together as a family, and Bulelani just made a comment about his work, and it seemed as though he really didn't think much about this comment that he had made, but it's something that really stuck out to her family that they remembered, and when they look back on it, just really frightens them. Bulelani was speaking about his job, and he told them that he had been trained to kill people, and he feels absolutely nothing when he does it. It was after their initial meeting where Ansel just decided that he doesn't like Bulelani. There was just something about him that didn't sit right with him. There was also the thing that Bulelani would do when he would see Ansel and they would greet each other, but Bulelani would never look him in the eyes. And for Ansel, that was weird because Bulelani would avoid eye contact as much as possible, and he didn't like that. So from there on out, he wouldn't even talk to Bulelani, and this really bothered Leandre, so much so that she told her mom that she likes Bulelani. Bulelani is a really good person, but she just doesn't understand why her dad doesn't like him, and was just kind of speaking to her mom to kind of get her to speak to her dad, Ansel. It wasn't long before Leandre told her parents that she was moving out and she was going to live with Bulelani, and they didn't understand. For them, it was too early. They had just started dating, and moving in with your partner was just something that they didn't do. But Leandre was very adamant, so she moved out of her parents' home and started living with Bulelani. And it was during their relationship that his jealousy and possessiveness turned into complete rage. Allegedly, he would kick Leandre to the ground during arguments, and he would get angry if she spoke with other men. Sometimes he would slam her head against walls multiple times during their fights, and he was very dominant. So much so that people would notice that when the two of them were together, when Bulelani would get closer to Leandre, she seemed terrified, like she didn't want him coming closer to her. He also started isolating her, took over her bank cards, and constantly followed her around. Leandre would later tell her mother Rita that the reason why she moved out of her parents' house wasn't because she wanted to live with Bulelani. It's because he threatened her at gunpoint and told her that she had to live with him or else he would kill her family. Even though Leandre lived with Bulelani, she would still often see her parents. And there was one day when she went to go visit her parents and she was with her mother Rita, and Rita noticed that Leandre had bruises on her back. So she asked Leandre about these bruises, and Leandre just kind of brushed it off and told her mother that it happened during karate, and her mother knew that she was lying. Her mother told Leandre that she knew that in karate you can't hit someone's back. It's against the rules. So she then asked her again, what happened to your back? Knowing what was happening in her daughter's relationship with Bulelani, Rita really tried to get Leandre to leave Bulelani and just get out of that situation. She even suggested that maybe she should go teach in China because a lot of teachers had been moving to different countries, getting jobs there, and she thought that it would be a good way for Leandre to get away from Bulelani. Leandre listened to her mother. She applied, she filled out the entire application, and she got the job. She got the job in China, but then she told Bulelani about it, and her parents didn't want her to tell him about it. They just kind of wanted her to disappear without a word and him not know where she is, where she went, what she was doing. And they just think that Bulelani had this hold on Leandre that they just didn't understand. And after he found out, he got really upset, so she didn't move to China. Leandre also told her mom that when her and Bulelani would get into fights and Bulelani would start hitting her, she would fight back. She would try her best to fight back, but more often than not, he would pin her to the ground and be on top of her. And she told her mom that he was just too heavy and she couldn't fight back. In 2019, 2 years into their relationship, Leandre left. And Bulelani couldn't accept that, and he didn't want to let her go. There was one day where he went to Rita's place of work in his uniform with all of his guns. He had a rifle, he had guns in his pockets, and he went up to Rita, and Rita held her ground. She looked at him and she told him that if you're trying to intimidate me, it's not going to work. And this is when Bulelani said to her, or kind of asked, like, please tell Leandre that she can be in a relationship with me. And Rita said no. Rita said that she didn't want Bulelani to be in a relationship with her daughter. And this is when Bulelani tried to get her to speak to him in another room so they could close the door, because now they were just basically in the middle of the hallway. And Rita said no. She told Bulelani that if he wanted to speak to her, if he wanted to kill her, that he should just do it there and then in front of everyone that was there at work, in front of all of her colleagues. And she told him not to be a coward. And this is when Bulelani said to Rita, if I can't have your daughter, you guys will suffer. You won't have her if I can't have her. I want you to feel what I feel if you don't want me to be with Leandre. And once I've killed her, I'll kill you too. I will kill the rest of your family and there'll be no one left. LeAndre was so scared about what Bulelani would do to not only her but also her entire family. So her parents convinced her to get a restraining order against him. LeAndre and her mom Rita then made their way to Cambridge police station so they could drop off this restraining order. And once they got to the police station, it seemed as though no one wanted to take it. Rita then saw a police officer, so she handed him the restraining order. He looked at it, gave it to the next person. The next person looked at it, gave it to another person. The next person looked at it, gave it to another person, until a female police officer walked into the station, and she took a look at the restraining order and she said that she would be the one to file it. So they watched her take it, and then this police officer picked up the phone and she called Bulelani. She told Bulelani that if he didn't want to be embarrassed, that he should come to the police station immediately and sign the restraining order. This was the same police station that Bulelani worked at, so these police officers were his colleagues. And Rita knew that something was off about the whole phone call. She knew that that was not the procedure for a restraining order. But what made it even worse was that this police officer had called Bulelani and had spoken to him in Xhosa, and she didn't think that Rita understood her, but Rita understood the whole conversation. Then the police officer told Rita that they shouldn't leave, that Bulelani was on his way to sign the restraining order, and Rita said no. Rita said that's not what they should do. They don't have to be there when Bulelani gets to the police station. So then her and LeAndre left and they took the restraining order with them. Once they got out of the police station, LeAndre just broke down and she told her mom that she was so scared of Bulelani and what he was going to do. She told her mom that Bulelani would kill her and kill their family in this police station, and the police officers would protect him and they wouldn't protect them. They kept the protection order in the car with them wherever they went in case anything happened. Bulelani would stalk LeAndre and her family, and she was so terrified of him that wherever she went, her parents constantly had to go with her. Her parents had to drive her. They constantly had to look over their shoulders because Bulelani would follow them. Bulelani would try to talk to them, and LeAndre just didn't have a normal life anymore. Whether she wanted to go to the shops, whether she had practice, anything, she constantly had to have her parents with her to make sure that Bulelani didn't do anything. In the days leading up to the 30th of August 2019, it seemed as though Bulelani had almost given up. They would drive around and they wouldn't see him anymore. It seemed like he wasn't following them. Then on the 30th of August, LeAndre had boxing practice, so her mom Rita took her. Usually Ansel would go with them, but on this specific day, he didn't go. And because of what happened, they believe that Bulelani was still following them and he was just waiting for the day that Rita and LeAndre were alone. They got into the car, they switched on the radio, they were laughing, they were singing, and in those few moments, they forgot about Bulelani. They forgot to look over their shoulders. They just had a normal mother and daughter moment. They were driving through Mdantsane when a white Mercedes was at the back of their car. It was on their car, and Rita just thought that maybe the driver was in a rush, so he was kind of just driving on their car to get them out of the way so that he could overtake them. She thought maybe the driver was in a rush. So she went to the side to give way to this driver, and the car didn't leave. This is when LeAndre looked and she just screamed, "It's Andy, it's Andy." And that's what LeAndre would call Bulelani. She would call him Andy. Rita then pushed her foot on the accelerator and drove as fast as she could to try and get away from Bulelani. And this is when he started shooting at the car. He shot Rita below her eye through her nose, but Rita kept driving. LeAndre was panicking. She was shouting that Bulelani was chasing them and shooting at them. And Rita tried to get away even with her gaping wound. Bulelani still kept shooting at the car. And this is when they reached traffic. Rita couldn't overtake any of the other cars. And they were kind of just stuck there while Bulelani kept shooting at the car. He then shot Rita through the shoulder and he shot her in the back. This bullet went through her lung and exited out of her chest. Rita then decided to pull over because there wasn't anywhere that she could go. She could barely drive because she was bleeding so much from all of her gunshot wounds. She then just said a silent prayer and just said that she's leaving it all in God's hands. LeAndre then looked at her mom and told her mom that she would be right back. She told her mom several times that she loved her and that she will always love her. And then she got out of the car and said that she was going to talk to Bulelani. Rita held her breath and just waited for the blow. She then heard one gunshot after the other. And she just knew that LeAndre was no more. Bulelani had shot her execution style. Somehow Rita managed to get her phone and she called her husband and she told her husband that she had been shot and that she thinks that LeAndre is dead. Ansel managed to get to the scene as fast as he could, and he didn't even notice that LeAndre was lying on the floor. He went straight to the car. He saw his wife bleeding and he asked, "Where's LeAndre? Where's LeAndre?" And Rita just said she's like outside of the car. She's somewhere at the top there. And Ansel went to go look for her, and that's when he found her just lying on the floor. And for a moment, it seemed like she was just resting, like she was tired, so she just put her head down to just lay for a few moments. And then he saw all of the blood, and he just knew. After Bulelani had shot LeAndre, he pointed the gun to the people who were in traffic, and then he just changed his mind and walked back to his car and got in. A police chase then began across the N2 highway. For nearly 65 kilometers, police officers kept trying to get Bulelani to stop his car to pull over, but Bulelani did not stop. It seems as though he lost control of his car, so his car swerved into oncoming traffic and there was an accident. His car hit another car, and on impact, he killed 2 people. A pedi clinic nurse and a librarian who were both 29 years old. Surprisingly, Bulelani survived this car accident. He was arrested and airlifted to the nearest hospital where he stayed in ICU for 3 days before he lost his life to his injuries. That Monday that he died, he was supposed to have his first court appearance. Bulelani never got his day in court. LeAndre was laid to rest on the 14th of September 2019, and hundreds of people attended her funeral. It was devastating and completely heartbreaking. A lot of people believe that in her final moments, LeAndre sacrificed herself for her mother. She decided to stand up to Bulelani for the last time and to look him in the eyes when he finally pulled the trigger. What happened that day shouldn't have happened. 3 lives were lost. Leighandre Jegels, Aluta Oluta, and Siyasanga Gaiman. Could it have been prevented with better police measures put in place after the protection order? Probably, but we'll never know. 4 years after her tragic murder on the 30th of November 2023, the Leighandre Baby Lee Jegels Recreational Park opened. And it said from her first fight to her last, LeAndre displayed strength of character and perseverance that stands as an example to us all to never give up. Join us as we dedicate the space to her memory and her enduring fighting spirit. And that's it for today's case. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out my channel a lot. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.